to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. It's Power Talk Friday. If you're like me, get ready for a few aha moments today, right? Sometimes we have people on the show who aren't specifically involved in the interior design business, but because of their success, their experience, I know that they can provide great advice and lessons that we can benefit from and take to our businesses. My guest today, Michelle Feeney, is the founder of Floral Street, and she is here to do exactly that. She's a heck of a smart lady as well as an accomplished business person. She's either had positions with or worked with companies like Estee Lauder, MAC Cosmetics, the internationally known Vincent van Gogh Museum, BAFTA, and she has held the position of CEO of Saint-Tropez. She has built brands, she has sold brands, and she's here today to share what she's learned and how she's leveraged this career of experience that she has in creating her new company, Floral Street Fragrances. I think you'll be inspired, and I think you're going to enjoy meeting Michelle every bit as much as I did. Hi, Michelle. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, LuAnn. And hello from London.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk with you. I have to say, it's a funny thing because reading your bio and learning all about your accomplishments, yes, ma'am, all day long, I was looking forward to and excited to speak with you because I love to talk to intelligent, accomplished business people. And I was thinking to myself, well, this could be a little selfish, LuAnn, because she doesn't really have anything to do with interior design. But then I started to read a little further, Michelle, and you have a very nice, cross section there that I do think speaks to interior designers in that your company, Floral Street. This is, we talked about it in the introduction. It's a floral company that you started. After many years, I'm going to pick apart all the things that you've done. But what I remember reading in there is that you talked about how fragrance should be for you what you feel like, what you want to feel like, what you aspire to feel like, and you said this to me off air, that you wanted to take sex out of selling fragrances. And I'm thinking to myself, in the last year on the podcast, I've had more interior designers tell me that they take the approach to their design now on how their client wants to feel in a space. And you're taking that approach with your cosmetics, with the fragrances. How does your client want to feel wearing the fragrance? And am I understanding this correctly, Michelle?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the sort of strap line for our fragrances is "Who will you be today?" And, it's almost like we have to give, particularly women, I think, the permission to choose how they want to feel today. So, I launched with 8 fragrances right out of the bat, really, which was a bit scary, as I funded it all myself. But I really wanted to not a commercial, sort of traditional fragrance selling, and you'll see a lot of it around Mother's Day and Christmas, and it's seeping into home fragrance now, is really about celebrity and, this very flash commercial. All my clothes fall off. I get the guy, I get the girl. And I just thought this isn't really modern at all. And, there's a place for that. Don't get me wrong. And obviously, these companies are hugely successful. But I really wanted to take that idea that you had to be somebody else, that celebrity, or and also you don't need a signature scent anymore. It should be yours and belong to you. And I don't know about you, but when I'm in different situations, like today, I'm speaking to you. I want, it's sort of edging towards the end of my day. In London, I've got sunflower pop on because I know it will energize me and make me feel happy. And particularly during lockdown, we saw that this has spilled over into home scents as well. And I launched during lockdown our home fragrances, and we have been working with interior designers about sort of scentscaping. So taking
Mm.
that one step further in a room, what do you want that room to feel like? Or do you want it to transition in the evening to a different kind of space? And that you can do with lighting, but also with a different kind of candle, that smells deeper and darker. So I'm really, really thinking this is the future of my company, in a way, is to work in spaces with design, and even individuals that are designing their own home, into taking that one step further. How do you want to feel in that room? How do you want to feel in each room? It's different at different times.
This is interesting. This is another layer that I hadn't expected. And so
Mhm.
you're actually actively thinking about the possibilities of being, part of the interior designer's toolkit, their arsenal for when
Yep.
they are working with someone and saying, how do you want to feel in this space? And to encouraging interior designers to extend that, not just from the products that are there, but the way the room is scented.
Yeah,
Interesting.
absolutely. And I'm even sort of, I just had a meeting today with a company about even developing a sort of an electronic device that could express fragrance in your home, much like you see hotels being scented now, but doing it for home, but in a sustainable way. Because obviously our products are all sustainable, and we're not pumping out lots of nasty ingredients into the air. It's really about natural ingredients. But I think consumers, because don't forget, whether you're an interior designer or or you own a beauty company, you've got an end user. And this shift, particularly during lockdown, of people really focusing on their homes and themselves as an individual more and more, I think is this wonderful opportunity for particularly, what I do, to go to the next level. And that positioning of who will you be today? How do you want to feel? It's about you. How do you want your guests to feel? I've just done a big interiors interview here in London, and we walked through my house, and I'm like, well, when they come to the door, I want them to feel like this, so I use this fragrance. And he thought this was amazing, that you could take it to the next level.
It is amazing. And by the way, what's so funny is it's a little silly of me to have the reaction of, wow, that's cool. Because we all know scent is so powerful, right? And it really does
Yep.
inform the experience of the space that we're in.
Absolutely. And it's like the icing on the cake,
Mm.
You see the beautiful room with color, and if you can imagine how that room would smell, I think that's a really interesting idea. How do you want this room to smell, as well as how do you want it to look?
Mm. What's funny is, and whenever somebody takes me by surprise like this, and like I said, here's
Sorry.
no, 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 it's great. I mean, I love it. This is what I live for on this show. 800 episodes, and I get an aha almost every gosh darn time. Okay, but what I love about it is my most favorite aha is this exact aha, where it's, of course that makes sense. But I never thought of it, right? So here's the aha. It's not only like, yes, this makes sense. Of course, scent impacts the way we are experiencing a room, but the idea of creating, like you said, the experience based on the way I want to feel. You just said, how do I want my guests to feel when they first come in? How do I want the guests to feel when they're finally into the kitchen? Because my only experience has been, I've never taken it to the next level. It's like, whatever the darn candle smells like, it's either on or it's off, right? Like, and you see, and I've never thought, well, what smell would make me feel this way? And therefore, I'm not a candle girl. I'm just like, whatever. But now I'm thinking, well, what if I did it intentionally? Like you would decorate your room intentionally to, support the way you want to be in there. It's a major aha I just had here.
And you don't. It doesn't have to be a candle. At Floral Street we developed these liquidless reeds that.
Oh, I like that even better. I have to say.
Slot in, yeah. What? Even a dried flower arrangement or a cactus little, display you might have in your home, you could give it a scent. And I just think playing with scent, playing with your feelings and reactions. And I do get tremendous pleasure when people walk into my house and go, oh, it always smells so good, because you're immediately warming as well. You're immediately got some connection. So I'll have to get you some of those.
Yes.
But I think this playing with scent as a powerful tool to enhancing what you might have designed as a designer is really interesting. And we were chosen by BAFTA, the British Academy, they spent 33 million pounds on redoing a building they own in central London in Piccadilly, and they approached us about scenting the building, and that's what we sent them certain scents, and they chose one called Grapefruit Bloom, which is very citrusy and uplifting, and fits no matter who you identify with sexually. It really suits everyone. And they wanted us to inspire people when they came in the building to know, oh, this is the BAFTA building, this is the smell of the BAFTA building.
Oh, and tell me what BAFTA is again.
It's the British Film Academy. It's like the Oscar sort of, it's the Oscars of Britain, but they have a building.
Okay.
And they support a lot of talent. And they very British thing. We're a British company. We manufacture in Britain as well. So yeah, I felt very honoured at only being 4 years old, and they've chosen us to do that.
Yes.
So it shows you that whole scentscaping idea is becoming a very popular one in buildings.
And how will you actually achieve it? Will it be something in the air filtration system, or is it going to be with, products around the spaces? Like how will something like that work? Like how would a designer anticipate designing that in?
Yeah. It's a bit of both, really. So we're working with the scents around the building, and we've developed a hand wash and hand soap specially for them. And then because of COVID, we couldn't. The company that we work with, Aromaco, which is a British company, were putting in these machines to scent the space. And we're just starting to do that now. But because of COVID, they didn't want, the space and the smell and different things was a bit held back. But we're working with another outside company. And I've got a bit of a mission, and you heard it here first, but you go to a lot of hotels, they're scented, but I'm working on something where I would like to bring that technology into the home, in that you could be able to do that yourself. And then you also know what's going into the scent, how organic it is, where the ingredients have come from. And you can start to turn it on and turn it up at different times, or use different scents at different times of the day, which I think is also really interesting.
Yes, this is really something. So here's my question. You mentioned to me also off air that you started this company at 53 years old, and there's something to be said for that. I coincidentally started the podcast at 53, and I love that. I love that you did that and you had the courage to do it. But in doing that, you have these very different and bold and out of the box ideas about fragrance and scents for the home. Was it something like, I'm just doing this, get out of my way, it'll be fine? Or was it something where you started to talk about it and people were like, really? Like, tell me about that. How easy or how much confidence did you need or how much obstacle? Like, because, there's designers listening that are like, I'm 53 and I've been talking about being an interior designer. So talk to me about that a little bit, Michelle.
Okay, well, I am, I have had a lot of experience in the beauty industry
Mm-hmm.
from various different, from big brand, I was with Estee Lauder companies in New York actually for, 11 years working on big brands, building them around the world. I then I was a single mom during that time. My son is now 28, and I then got married at 40 and moved back to England and had my another child at 41.
Mm.
And I'd sort of decided I was going to step out of the big career and what was I going to do. And immediately I thought that I got approached by many companies to see if I would work for them or head up brands. And I ended up being the CEO of Saint Tropez, which is it's a tanning brand basically.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never had a tan in my life, a fake tan, and I was by now 43 actually, and not feeling too good about myself, and I had a spray tan. I thought, oh my God, this is an amazing thing. It makes me feel so good, but it's wrongly marketed, and I took the role, and it was under private equity. So this is another thing I think that many people get really scared of money, private equity. How do I get investments? Oh my God, I can't do that. I don't know that. I didn't know any of these things,
Mm.
but I swiftly learned. This company had bought Saint Tropez for too much money. It wasn't doing that well, and I was like the turnaround guy.
Mm.
And I went in and did my thing, and I had to learn. I had to learn the language of private equity, and I think many people, particularly women, are kind of scared of encounters with people that might empower your business by lending you money, and I did get involved with women in private equity for a while on that front. Anyway, I turned this company around. I launched it back into America. It was originally founded in America, and I reframed the brand as skin finishing and helping with your self confidence. And that what I'm quite good at is relating product to zeitgeist, to people. Not just let's have this great idea for this great product. And I sold that company for quite a bit of money, £63 million. And
Whoa.
obviously, I wished I got all of that, but I had a percentage of that, which actually enabled me to have an amount of money I'd never had in my life before, really.
Mm.
And I then thought, what am I going to do? How am I going to apply my talent? And I'd had the company that bought Saint Tropez took me on board, and I built a beauty division for them, which took 2 years. And during that 2 years, I had this idea for Floral Street.
Mm.
But I was a bit scared, and I didn't know whether the world needed any more product, I'll be honest with you. And I thought, okay, I'm going to take a true gap year. I've never had a gap year. And at 51, I took a year out. And that I didn't travel because I'd traveled all my life all over the world. It was really about
Mm.
traveling inside and standing sort of still, staying still, being a mom to the two, looking at the world, observing the world from outside of my industry. And I saw this massive gap, this way that fragrance was sold, you know, really old fashioned way to consumers. It was expensive. And I thought, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it really differently. And I literally just jumped in. I found a product development person, and we sat around um, my dining room table, and we started there. And I think a lot of the time, it's just simply starting. That's the biggest leap. I didn't quite know how it would pan out. If you were to ask me now, LuAnn, what advice would you give to somebody doing a fragrance band? I'd say don't do it. It's really hard. It's really hard because you're up against all the big boys. You've
Yes.
got all the big boys out there. They've got tons of money, but what they haven't got, LuAnn, is ideas that are different, or that passion behind a product. And, I went in with sustainability, and we did the first ever pulp package for a fine fragrance. And I remember my husband saying to me, "Oh my God, what are you putting that beautiful bottle in this, you know, in that package for?" And I said, "You just wait and see. This is the future. This is modern luxury, which is less packaging." And true to form, that got me. Sephora US came and said, "You're modern, you're new, you're sustainable. We want you." Mecca Australia, the same. And it opened up doors because I did it differently. And it is the hardest thing. So I've built brands, I've sold brands, I've, been at the very top of my industry in what I did at Lauder with MAC Cosmetics. But this has been really hard because when it's your company, and you'll know this, your passion is there, your heart's on the line. And the scariest thing was I opened my own store in London, and the day before we opened it, I just couldn't get out of bed. I was so scared that people wouldn't like it, that it would fail. I was really traumatized basically. And we opened the doors, and some customers came in, and then it was begun. And now I'm taking that into home products because we're called Floral Street. We're about flowers. We're about great fragrances with the best nose in the world, one of the best noses in the world designing them. And I think, like we talked about, it brings joy. And I get, lots of feedback from lots of people saying thank you, about how I've empowered them to be a bit more free spirited about what they're doing.
Uh, it's amazing. It's a remarkable story. And I'm, you know, about every 15 interviews, I get tongue tied because I'm like, all the places to go. And I have to say that I'm listening to all of the accomplishments, and for you to say, and LuAnn, your audience will know this, like being the entrepreneur and having it on the line. And for you, you had to have gone strutting in to countless board meetings with those big guys that you had to answer for, margin deliveries and
Yep.
inventory,
Yep.
counts and all the things. But here you open up a retail shop, and the day before, you're feeling a paralyzing fear of
Yep.
whether you'll succeed or not. And I love that you said, my audience is going to know that feeling. This is what they are. They're entrepreneurs. And it's crazy because I'm listening to your story and I'm like, this lady's going to fly to the moon next. You know what I'm saying?
I know that everybody expects me to have all the answers and all sewn up, and I'm human. I'm a female. We have our fears, and I think without those, I maybe wouldn't be as good at what I do. And I'm not. I mean, I could be. Trust me. I think business at the moment, LuAnn, for everybody. I don't know over there, but is really tough. We've got supply chain issues, even on if you're ordering furniture from Italy and stuff. I mean, uh, it's a changed landscape out there, and I think it's about keeping your feet on the ground, keeping focused on your true dream, not dream, but the sense of what you want to achieve, your vision for who you are and what you are. And back to that, who will you be today? But it's and success can bring so much challenge as well. We've gone very fast, and for me, if I was in a big company, I would access lots of people to do everything. And when it's your own, I'm ending up with 10 different hats on. That's the other thing. Combined with being in life and your kids and all that kind of thing. But I think it's my journey at the moment, and being the plus side of running your own company is, it's your mistake.
Yeah.
It's not somebody else's mistake. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think I often ask myself, if I'm also worried about something, I sort of say, what's the worst that can happen?
I'm
And
not going to, who am I going to be in
if I
trouble with,
can live
right?
with that,
Yeah.
yeah, if I can live with that, then that's okay.
Yes.
If I can live with that,
Right.
that's okay.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And thank you for being human because um the other thing that I want to just go back to is what's so funny is when you listen back to the interview, you're going to hear it. You at one point said, and then I jumped in. I just had to jump in. I got the guy at my dining room table. We started talking about it. But right before that, you said the most important thing, that you stepped back and took that gap year, and to really, I guess what I heard in that was that you had just spent 20 or 25 years in this same industry, and from as a
Mhm.
different perspective, I'm sure climbing up the ladder to the various positions, being VP and all the way to being CEO in the
Mm.
beauty industry. And by taking that gap year, and you specifically mentioned looking at the industry from the outside in. And then you had the clarity on what the gap was in the industry. And then you said, and then I jumped in. So you really, what I love is that a lot of times people just talk about, oh, well, one day I just had this idea and I did it. And I love the understanding that it was getting the clarity, getting quiet, listening, watching, observing, and taking the whole thing in. And because we always say, we've had Robin Barron's been on the show. She talked about bringing her product to launch. She's got a beautiful furniture line and hardware line for furniture and so forth. And she said, she said the exact same thing. You gotta find the gap. You can't just be the next person with the same thing. Sometimes you can because maybe you put a different spin on it, she said, but better to find where there's a gap. And you did that. And I love that. And so your two gaps are what you described, who do you want to be today, talking to women. And I guess, I don't know, do you do scents for men as well, or actual fragrances for
Yeah,
men?
I mean,
Yeah.
do you know what I've realized, LuAnn, is that again, not being a fragrance specialist per se, i- the only thing that makes a a fragrance male or female is the marketing. So,
Mm.
you either like it or you don't,
So
right?
true.
And it's we've been really, that was another thing I noticed. I'm like, oh my God, there's you either like it or you don't. But it's why is there a men's? This is before things were merging. So if you look at our design of the bottles, they're very pretty, but we get a lot of men buying our fragrances,
Mm.
and we get a lot of Middle Eastern customers of our darker fragrances,
Mm.
which is a true compliment because they tend to be real experts in
Mm.
fragrance as
Mm.
well. So
Makes sense.
so yeah, but I
Yes.
think that gap, finding that gap, or even if you are your idea is, it doesn't have to be that different from what's out there as long as you believe in it, and y- you know where you want to go with it, I think.
Right. Right. You put your
I guess,
stamp on
yeah,
it. You're something
yeah,
about it that you're doing differently.
yeah.
And the other part that I love is that you identified this area of fragrance that is needs to be addressed from a sustainable standpoint, and you had the
Yeah.
courage, even your husband
Mhm.
looking at you saying that's not great packaging for that beautiful product, and you I love that you watch, this is the future. I love that. And it's so true because there's so many products that you do open and you love it and you feel special and you feel all who you think you are because you bought it and all this, but then you look at the pile of the stuff afterwards and it's like, is that necessary? All of those, little keep opening and all the packaging. So, talk a little bit about how you are breaking the mold in the sustainability as far as the ingredients as well as the packaging.
Okay, this is interesting. And I mean, I think what you said about taking for me, taking that space and gap year is really important. And I wouldn't even read a women's magazine or fashion. I did, however, consume a lot of interiors. I love the interior publications and sites, and I find them very inspirational. So I think taking yourself out of what your everyday and looking in will give you that breadth, that little bit of space to see how your idea could fit into the modern world. And I didn't know about it. I went to a colleague of mine from Lauder and said, look, do you think this is a good idea? He was very high up in Lauder, and he said, do it, just do it.
Mm.
And I said, is Robertet a good company to work for? And they are the leading fragrance house in natural ingredients and sustainability. So we're working with one of the best noses in the world, who's done big other brands, by Byredo and created. And he wanted to work with me. And I know that those ingredients, I know where they come from, the farms that they work on. For instance, vanilla out of Madagascar, it's small family businesses, and they sleep on the vanilla because it's so expensive to harvest and sell. It's called black gold. And I wanted to bring all these stories into the process of buying a fragrance so that you could learn about what you were smelling, and learn why you liked it and connect to who was growing it, much like food or, a beautiful carpenter or a craftsman who might have made something for your home. So on the ingredients, for instance, in our home products, we don't use alcohol-based room sprays. It's all vegan oil, even the basis of what we do. And then the packaging, I work with a 180-year-old paper mill who in the Lake District in the UK. So it's like a national park, the Lake District, what would be described in America. And they wanted to get into pulp, and we're part of this cup cycling where they collect the cups from Starbucks and other companies like that, and they extrude the plastic and reuse that, and then the pulp from that paper goes into our box, and we designed the box, and it went off to be molded in Korea and came back. The whole design process, that's where I put all my energy into the product, was the design process, and working with really fabulous partners that could help me tell the story, and I could help them tell their story. So the ingredients, the packaging company, even the partners you choose to work with, what are their policies on people and the planet, and you feel like even though you're small, you feel like you're part of this great movement that is wanting to change things. And being open with the consumer is really nice place to be. And I say you can ask me anything and I'll answer it, about my company and the ingredients, and I'll be truthful about it. And I think modern consumers want that. They want that. So and it's coming into design big time also, isn't it? I mean, the sustainability aspect. Yes. And also this, buying things that are pre-owned and pre-loved and reworking them in a creative way. I just think it's a very exciting time in the world in that respect.
It's true. It's another conversation that, we had from the beginning here and there, but I mean, once a week, I must get an email from an interior designer that is suggesting themselves for the podcast, and the feature point of view is sustainable, how they're going into sustainable design and so forth. And we've done several episodes about it. It is becoming, like you said to your husband, you're right, watch me. I'm right, watch me.
He's fine about it now that we're in 22 countries and we've won a lot of awards for the packaging. But he always says he gets my ideas about 2 years later, and then he
they love that. I love that.
But you know how hard that is sometimes, being ahead but being small.
Yes.
Because if you feel like you're more future facing and as a creative, and then you're in a bigger company, you can realize that. But being small, often you have to find a way of telling your story that's a bit more creative, I think.
And it's funny because something that I read about you was that you have a point of view on how to make your brand a cult brand through partnerships. And that was you sort of alluded to that right there. And in your conversation about connecting the stories to how the fragrances are cultivated, how the vanilla beans. And so talk a little bit about that, because, designers have an opportunity too to align themselves with brands that they aspire to be like and so forth. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to one of your interviews with a really interesting lady who is an expert in sort of building brand you know, and I found it really interesting actually. But if you look
Mm.
at my history, I call myself a cult brander. So, you know, I was at the beginning of Bumble and Bumble hair care at 1993. We developed the products and launched that in a recyclable bottle. You know, MAC itself, I launched Creme de la Mer, which is a cult brand now. And it's really the essence of the story and the basis that you build, the building blocks you build on. And for us, I can't do that alone. You know, I need these great suppliers, but you creatively can help that supplier look differently at their product. So the pulp manufacturer had never done a perfume box, and now L'Oreal are working with them, and
Ah,
lots of other people, you know, 4 years on. And whilst part of me is pleased about that because the world is changing, the other part is like, oh my God, we were there first, you know. Um,
yes.
but I think it helps you as as a lone, if you're if you're individual and you're different and you're trying to build your brand or your company, who you associate with becomes really important, you know. And there's a strength in numbers of who you associate with because they can help you tell your story, you
Mm.
know. um, they have a what they it is in their interest to tell their story through you. And so we even work with the Royal Horticultural Society. They came to us and said, we love what you're doing. It's the biggest gardening charity in Britain. Can you develop a fragrance with us? And we went to their Wisley garden and we worked with the head guard. We put the head gardener together with our nose, and he was inspired by this heritage rhubarb collection. And we launched a fragrance, and we got to launch it at Chelsea Flower Show,
Mm.
and it empowered us. It put some fuel in our tank as a brand, but it also helped them look modern and speak to a new consumer. So, you know, I think for me, and we've just done the Van Gogh Museum, I'm like, wow, you know, in Amsterdam chose us out of
Wow.
all the brands they could choose. And that's because we're different, because we're sustainable. And this other really important word, which is independent. And the modern consumer is loving, you know, the indie, the because they feel they can be more connected to the independent, you know.
Mm. Well, it is a funny phenomenon, right? That I keep hearing over the last several months or year or so is that the millennial generation wants to be connected to the brands that they buy from and wants to know the story of the brands that they buy from. And it's sort of
Mhm.
like it isn't just anymore, oh, you know, take two of those and one of those. It's like, well, what does that company stand for and what are their values and all the thing.
Yeah.
It is the curve now. It is where the world is going because, you know, maybe the millennials started it, but I'm certainly not a millennial and I've now it gets me thinking. You know what I'm saying,
Yeah,
right?
well, I think you're right. I don't think it is a young, when I started the brand, I thought it was going to be for millennials and younger and you know, and what I realized is it's just a modern, interested consumer. You know,
Right.
my mom's 80 and is really interested in the environment, you know, so
Mhm.
why wouldn't she come and look? So I think much bigger companies are just they still doing who's your customer, you know, what, let's put them in a box over here. But it's really about, especially as if you're an independent company, who do you stand for and who do you want to associate with? And you know, people are attracted to that, they really
Mhm.
are.
Yes, yes. And we can all take that to our businesses. I mean, we can,
Yeah.
you know, analyze what that means to us as an interior designer and figure out who are the brands that we believe in and have those aligned values and beliefs, right? And then talk about it and explain it and tell the story of why I'm with this person or not that person or this brand or not that brand. It's that's the only missing step sometimes is that maybe we don't express that in our marketing or in our messaging and our storytelling, right?
Or I think, you know, I used an interior designer for the first time when I moved into this house in London. It's quite a large house, and I felt it was a bit overwhelming for me to do it. And I I think what the biggest advantage was, you've got somebody to curate for you. So, bring you different things, different brands, different ways of thinking. And most people haven't got time to go out and look for themselves, or don't know those independent people that might be able to do things. And I found that really exciting to find, she really helped me broaden my knowledge of where to go and what to look for. And I think, if you're an interior designer, you suddenly become this, almost like you've got the Hollywood stylist, for your wardrobing. It's really very much like that. And I think even if it's in a small way and you're doing things on a local basis, you can really help that individual develop a new way of looking at things, and give them some, what we call about fragrance freedom, but this sense of freedom about their own space, and be a little bit more adventurous in what they do. So
I love it. I love it. And so, if we're here, well, of course, we have a nice following of designers in the UK, Michelle, that listen to us as well. But if you're here, and I guess if you're in the UK, you can go to your shop, but here we can go to Sephora. Like, tell us how we can access the product, learn more about it, especially if the designers are interested in that scentscaping and what's going on with that.
Mhm. Okay, well, we have our own web in the US, so it's floralstreet.com. We're in Nordstrom. We're in every Nordstrom door with our beautiful home products, so you
Mm.
can access them there. And Anthropology and Sephora with our fragrances as well. And then if anybody's interested in the whole, I'm developing more and more of that scentscaping guidelines, but I'd also like to hear from experts in the field, how you think you would use this. And I've been working with somebody down in Brighton in England, she helped me really understand this whole scentscaping and tablescaping,
Mm.
and for holiday season. So I think I would suggest, just playing around with that idea in simple ways to enhance designs, really. And how do you want that room to feel? I think it's going to have a big future, really.
Yeah, it sounds exciting. Um, I love just glimpsing the little bits of your visionary brilliance. It's so fun and exciting to see, hear, and watch something like that happen. And I know you're only 4 years into it, but it just makes so much sense. Like, I feel like all of us are going to be in 3, 4, 5 years, be like, we talked to Michelle way back. Look at this. Everybody is following what she's doing
Oh,
now, right?
oh, wouldn't that be great? And I just think, even now, in my late 50s now, I think just learning every day, and seeing that your creativity can be married with business. That was
Mm.
that was the other thing. And that you can do both, and that for me, it's like every single day I'm learning something new. I'm still able, once you start a little business, you can expand on that with your creativity, like you said, and vision. And I think, for particularly, I know there's a lot of guys listening in, but particularly women, you know, you can sort of get written off at a certain
Mm.
age. And I think, don't be scared to have that, even if it's something really small. It doesn't have to be big. I just happen to do things in that way, I think, because of my past. But do it in a way that suits you. But if you've definitely got the inkling, then I would say do it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So much inspiration. Michelle, I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I appreciate, just like I said, the inspiration for the possibilities and the actual tactics to coming out of the gate with some ideas and some courage to put those ideas into action. So good. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, LuAnn. You've made my evening. Thank you.
When Michelle started Floral Street Fragrance, she knew that she wanted the fragrances to represent what a person would like to feel like, what a person aspires to feel, right? That was an aha moment for me. You have been taking this approach when you talk with your clients and determine how to design their space by asking them how they want to feel in a space. Okay. That I knew that was interesting, but I never considered that this could also be part of your toolkit to provide a space for your client that not only creates that feeling that they're looking for in their surroundings, but also in the wonderful products that contribute to how it smells, right? And of course, I know that scent impacts us, all right? But the aha moment came with the idea of creating the experience of the scent based on the way a person wants to feel in that room. That was interesting. This is really taking it to a next level. Why don't we consider what smell would make us or our guests feel a certain way, right? What if we did it intentionally? What if you did it intentionally when you were doing your designing, all right? The other thing I love is after being in the industry, the beauty industry for many years, Michelle took that step back in order so that she could look at the industry from the outside in. Having that step back gave her the clarity on where the gaps were in the fragrance industry that she had spent many years a part of. She noticed the gap in the way that the fragrance was being sold. And I have to say, I mentioned it in the episode, Robin Barron talked about this as well when she was here telling us how to get a product to market. She talked about knowing the market, knowing the needs, doing the research before you create the product, okay? So we'll put that episode in the show notes. Check it out. It's another great conversation with another smart lady. Now, Michelle spent a career learning the industry, and then she spent a year learning what she didn't know about it. How cool is that? That is smart. I love that. And I also loved how vulnerable Michelle was, telling us of the fear of the night before opening her store in London, right? We can relate to that. No matter what business we're in, fragrances, podcasting, interior design, it's scary to start something new, something that you're passionate about, especially wondering, will anyone else think it's worthwhile? Right? But I love Michelle's advice. Keep your feet on the ground. Stay focused on who you are and what you want to be. Great, great advice. All right. With the modern consumer in mind, Michelle is now taking Floral Street into home products. She has also made sampling fragrance and online successful with her discovery set. Talk about successfully acclimating your business during the pandemic, right? I just love sharing successful stories of men and women who have started their businesses later in life, like Michelle did at 53, and me, the same, at starting the podcast at 53. So if you're out there wondering, can I do it? The answer is yes. Yes, you can. All right. So to learn more about Michelle and Floral Street Fragrance, you can go to her website at floralstreet.com. Her products are also sold at Sephora, Nordstrom, and Anthropologie. A big thank you to you, Michelle, for coming on and sharing your journey and inspiring us. I truly enjoyed meeting you. Thank you guys for showing up. Appreciate that you do that every single week. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of LuAnn Niagara, Inc. If you'd like to know more about me, my books, or LuAnn University, go to LuAnnNiagara.com. And if you want to learn more about exciting windows where you can get education and resources to build a better window treatment business, go to excitingwindows.biz. Have an excellent day.